He thought he was discarding a useless old man. He didn't realize he was throwing away $1 billion. In a world where blood relatives can become your worst enemies, sometimes a stranger is the only family you have left. This is the shocking story of a greedy son who dumped his father in a cheap nursing home to seize an empire and made the most expensive mistake of his life. Get ready for a roller coaster of betrayal, heartbreak, and the ultimate vindication. You're about to witness a powerful CEO go undercover to test the human heart, a nurse who passes the ultimate test of integrity, and a last will reveal that will leave you cheering. If you believe that karma always finds a way, you are in the right place. Smash that like button to support the good guys, subscribe to join our community of truth seekers, and let's dive into the story that proves kindness is the ultimate wealth. The tires of the luxury sedan screeched against the cracked pavement, a sound that seemed to scream in protest just like the man inside. Barney Gordon, a man used to the plush leather of boardrooms as a billionaire, was practically dragged out onto the curb of the dilapidated facility. "You can't do this to me," he bellowed, his voice cracking with a mix of fury and disbelief, echoing off the peeling paint of the retirement home walls. He wasn't just some old man, he was a titan of industry, a CEO who commanded thousands, yet here he was, being handled like expired goods. It was a chaotic scene, one that smelled distinctly of a family drama unfolding in the cruelest way possible, stripping a powerful man of his dignity in broad daylight and leaving him gasping for air in a world he didn't recognize. His son, a man whose eyes held the cold shine of a calculator rather than warmth, didn't even flinch at his father's outrage. This greedy son adjusted his expensive cufflinks, looking at the crumbling building with a sneer that suggested he was discarding a wrapper, not a parent. "It's for your own good, Dad," he lied, the words tasting like ash in the air, clearly a heartless move disguised as necessary care. Had convinced himself that stripping Barney of his rights was just a logical step, a way to secure the inheritance sooner rather than later. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking, a life lesson in betrayal taught by the one person Barney thought he could trust implicitly, shattering his world into a million jagged pieces. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of antiseptic and stale despair, a far cry from the pristine penthouses Barney called home. He straightened his disheveled jacket, trying to summon the authority that usually made subordinates tremble, but in this cheap hallway, he was just another number. "I am Barney Gordon," he shouted at a passing orderly, but the words seemed to dissolve into the indifference of the place. It was a shocking reality check for the tycoon, a moment where his status as a CEO meant absolutely nothing against the grim machinery of the system. The shadows in the corner seemed to whisper about regret, waiting to swallow him whole as the automatic doors slid shut behind him, sealing his fate in this concrete box. Watching the son turn his back on the father who built the very empire he now coveted was a gut-wrenching sight that chills the bone. It forces you to wonder, doesn't it? How much is a legacy worth if it costs you your soul? Barney watched him go, the silhouette of his child fading into the sunlight while he remained in the gloom. He felt truly abandoned, a sensation colder than any winter had weathered in the stock market. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His money could buy anything, but it clearly hadn't bought him loyalty or unconditional love. It was a bitter pill, harder to swallow than any medicine they'd give him here, a poison that seeped deep into his veins. The son climbed back into the car, likely already mentally calculating the savings from this budget facility versus a private suite. He didn't look back, not even once, a testament to the shocking truth of his character and the emptiness of his heart. Barney stood there, his chest heaving, his fists clenched at his sides, the gold watch on his wrist ticking away seconds that now felt infinitely long. This wasn't just a change of address, it was an exile designed to break him. The vindication he would eventually seek was just a spark in his mind right now, buried under layers of shock and hurt. But the wheels of karma turned slowly, and the son had no idea what storm he had just set in motion. As the silence settled around him, broken only by the distant hum of a television and quiet coughing, Barney's eyes hardened into flint. He wasn't going to let this be the end, not without a fight that would shake the foundations of his family. But for now, he was alone in a hallway that smelled of boiled cabbage and apathy, a king cast down among the paupers. He looked at his hands, hands that had built skyscrapers, now shaking with rage and impotence. The staff ignored him, the residents stared with vacant eyes, and the reality of his new prison began to sink in. He was trapped, cornered like a wounded animal, but a tiger is most dangerous when it's cornered. Little did he know, down the corridor, a shift was starting that would change the trajectory of his life forever. The narrative was about to shift from a tragedy of abandonment to something else entirely, something unexpected. Fate was shuffling the deck, and a certain caregiver was about to deal a new hand that neither Barney nor his son could predict. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, the kind that precedes a thunderstorm. Somewhere in this building, a light was about to shine into Barney's darkness, but first, he would have to endure the humiliation of his new existence. The stage was set for a collision of worlds. Naomi Williams tied her hair back, taking a deep breath before punching the time clock, bracing herself for another grueling 12-hour shift. She wasn't just a nurse, she was a lifeline for people who had been forgotten by the world, a beacon of patience in a sea of neglect. Her shoes were worn, her uniform faded, but her spirit remained untouched by the grime of the facility. She hummed a quiet tune, a small act of rebellion against the gloom, as she walked towards the nurse's station. Today felt heavy, the air charged with a static electricity that usually signaled trouble. She was ready for the usual chaos, but nothing could prepare her for the reputation of the new arrival. Her supervisor, a woman whose empathy had long ago been eroded by budget cuts and bureaucracy, intercepted her with a clipboard and a grimace. "We've got a live one in 304, Naomi," she warned, tapping the paper with a pen that clicked like a warning shot. "Claims he's a billionaire, screams at the walls, and refuses to eat the gruel we serve." The staff were already calling him the monster of the East Wing, a label that usually meant extra work and extra headaches. Naomi just nodded, her face a mask of professional calm, though internally she sighed. Dealing with difficult patients was part of being a caregiver, but this one sounded like a Category 5 hurricane. "He's been shouting for his lawyers since drop-off," another nurse whispered, leaning in as if sharing a ghost story. "Be careful, honey. He looks like he could bite." Naomi offered a small, tired smile, knowing that fear was often just pain wearing a mask.
She had seen it 1,000 times, the anger, the abandoned, the fury of those who realize they are no longer in control. This Mr. Gordon was likely just another scared soul lashing out at the dying of the light. She adjusted her name tag, a small shield of identity in a place that tried to strip it away, and prepared to face the beast. Walking down the hallway, the sounds of the retirement home were a familiar symphony of wheezing machines and shuffling feet. But as she approached room 304, a different sound emerged, a distinct, sharp tone of a man used to giving orders. It was a voice that didn't belong here, a baritone of boardrooms clashing with the linoleum reality of the ward. Naomi paused at the door, gathering her resolve. She knew that whatever family drama had dumped him here, it wasn't her fault, but she would likely be the punching bag for his frustration. It was an unfair dynamic, but one she accepted with the grace of a saint. She pushed the door open gently, not wanting to startle him, but the man inside was already pacing like a caged lion. Barney Gordon stopped mid-stride, his glare fixing on her with the intensity of a laser. The room was small, dingy, and clearly beneath him, a fact he seemed ready to articulate at volume. Naomi didn't flinch. She met his gaze with a steady, compassionate look that usually disarmed even the grumpiest residents. But Barney wasn't just grumpy. He was a man whose entire world had been inverted. He saw her not as a helper, but as a jailer, another cog in the machine that had stolen his life. "I didn't call for a nurse." He spat out, the word dripping with disdain. "I call for a phone that actually works." Naomi stepped inside, letting the door click shut behind her, sealing them in his bubble of rage. She noted the untouched food tray, the bag of clothes dumped unceremoniously on the bed, and the sheer tension radiating from him. This was going to be a long shift. She needed to navigate this minefield carefully, using every ounce of her life lesson experience in de-escalation. The air was thick with his entitlement, but underneath, she sensed a profound vulnerability. It was the beginning of a complex dance between two people from opposite ends of the spectrum. One, A CEO stripped of his power the other, a woman rich in kindness but poor in dollars. Naomi took a step forward, her hands open in a gesture of peace. She didn't know it yet, but this room was about to become the crucible for a life-changing journey for both of them. The difficult patient warning was an understatement. But Naomi Williams had never backed down from a challenge. She was about to meet the storm heat-in, armed only with her empathy. "I demand a private suite, and a menu that doesn't look like prison slop," Barney Gordon roared, throwing a plastic cup of water against the wall, where it cracked with pathetic sound. Naomi Williams watched the water trickle down the beige paint, her expression unreadable, a statue of calm amidst his tempest. He was treating the retirement home like a five-star hotel that had lost his reservation, unable to grasp that his billionaire status held no currency here. To him, she was just a servant, a nobody paid to wipe his brow, and he made sure his tone conveyed every ounce of that arrogance. "Mr. Gordon," Naomi began, her voice soft but firm, cutting through his tirade like a knife through butter. "We don't have suites. We have room 304, and the kitchen is closed." Her refusal to be rattled seemed to infuriate him further. He marched up to her, invading her personal space, expecting her to cower. "Do you know who I am?" He sneered, the classic line of a man who fears he is becoming no one. "I could buy this entire building and turn it into a parking lot by morning." It was a hollow threat, a ghost of his past power flailing in the present. Naomi didn't back down. She picked up the cracked cup, placing it in the trash with deliberate slowness. "Right now, you're a resident who is dehydrating," she said, pouring him a fresh glass. "Drink." It was a command, not a request, delivered with the authority of a seasoned caregiver. Barney blinked, taken aback by her steel. He was used to sycophants and yes-men, not a woman in scrubs who looked at him with pity rather than fear. He snatched the glass, his pride wrestling with his thirst, and downed it in one go, glaring at her over the rim. "This is unacceptable," he muttered, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, a gesture surprisingly unrefined for a CEO. "My son will fix this. He's coming back." The mention of his son brought a flicker of uncertainty to his eyes, a crack in the armor that Naomi instantly spotted. She knew the type she had seen the greedy son drop off 100 times. The promise of "we'll be right back" was the cruelest lie told in these hallways. "Until he does," Naomi said, smoothing the sheets of his bed, "you need to rest. Your blood pressure is high." Barney sat on the edge of the bed, the springs groaning under his weight, a stark reminder of the cheap facility. He looked at Naomi, really looked at her, searching for a weakness, a sign of the heartless indifference he expected from the world. Instead, he found only patience. It annoyed him. He wanted to fight, he wanted to scream, until someone acknowledged his importance. "Get out," he grumbled, turning his back to her. "I don't need a babysitter." It was a dismissal, rude and abrupt, but Naomi took it in stride. "It'll be at the station if you need anything," she said, her voice devoid of malice. She didn't take his insults personally. She knew they were the defense mechanism of a man in freefall. As she walked to the door, she paused. "And Mr. Gordon, please stop throwing things. It scares the other residents." She left him there, stewing in his own juices, a king in a cell. The encounter had been abrasive, a collision of egos and realities, but the first contact had been made. Barney stared at the closed door, his chest tight. He hated this place. He hated the smell. And he particularly hated that nurse who didn't seem to know her place. But as the silence returned, a small, nagging thought crept in. She was the only person who had looked him in the eye all day. The family drama outside was a storm, but in here, with that woman, there was a strange, irritating sense of order. He lay back, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, plotting his escape, unaware that his greatest ally had just walked out of the room. The next day brought a visitor, but not the rescue party Barney Gordon had prayed for. His son walked in, bringing with him a gust of expensive cologne that clashed violently with the smell of the retirement home. There were no flowers, no get-well-soon balloons, just a leather briefcase that looked like a weapon in his grip. Barney sat up, a spark of hope igniting in his chest. "You're here," he breathed, almost vulnerable. "Get me out of this dump." But the greedy son didn't move to pack a bag. He pulled up a chair and opened the briefcase with a snap. "Dad, we need to talk logistics," the son said, his voice smooth, practiced, devoid of any unconditional love. He slid a stack of documents onto the flimsy bedside table. "The board is worried. The stocks are jittery. I need you to sign these power of attorney forms. Just to keep things stable while you rest." Barney stared at the papers, the legalese swimming before his eyes. It wasn't a rescue, it was a coup. The inheritance wasn't enough. His son wanted the crown, while the king was still breathing, and not incapacitated. Barney snapped, pushing the papers away. "I'm just misplaced." The son sighed, a theatrical sound of patience wearing thin. "Look around you, Dad. You're in a home. You're old. It's time to let go." The words cut deep, a heartless assessment of Barney's worth. The son leaned in, his face hardening. "If you don't sign, the courts will get involved. It will be messy. You'll be declared incompetent anyway. Do it the easy way." It was blackmail, pure and simple. Barney felt his heart hammer against his ribs. The betrayal was absolute. This was the boy he had sent to the best schools, the man he had groomed to lead. And here he was, acting like a vulture circling a dying beast. "You don't care about me," Barney whispered, the shocking truth finally spoken aloud. "You just want the control." The son didn't deny it. He just tapped the pen against the paper. "I'm securing the family legacy. Sign the damn papers, old man." From the doorway, Naomi Williams watched, her heart breaking for the tyrant in room 304. She had come to check his vitals, but had walked into a scene of domestic horror. She saw the trembling in Barney's hands, not from age, but from rage and sorrow. She saw the predatory stance of the son. It was a life lesson on the corruption of money. Barney looked small for the first time, shrunken by the weight of his own child's cruelty. "I need time to read them," Barney stalled, his voice shaking. He was a CEO. He knew better than to sign under duress. But the son was relentless. "There is no time. The courier is waiting." He shoved the pen into Barney's hand, forcing his fingers around it. The physical contact was aggressive, bordering on abusive. Barney looked at the pen, then at his son, seeing a stranger with his own eyes. The silence in the room was deafening, a vacuum where love should have been. Barney dropped the pen. "Get out," he said, his voice low. "I said get out." The son stood up, snatching the papers back, his face twisted in anger. "You're making a mistake. Old man, you're going to rot here." He stormed out, leaving Barney trembling, a mix of fury and devastation. He had held his ground, but the cost was high. He was truly alone now, or so he thought, until he saw Naomi stepping out of the shadows, her eyes wide with a mix of pity and fierce determination. Naomi Williams couldn't stay silent. She had witnessed a greedy son bullying his father, a clear violation of everything she stood for as a caregiver. As the son stormed into the hallway, adjusting his tie as if he hadn't just tried to dismantle a man's life, Naomi stepped into his path. She was a foot shorter than him and earned in a year what he spent on a vacation. But in that moment, she was a giant. "You can't treat him like that," she said, her voice shaking slightly but her chin high. "He is your father, not a transaction." The son stopped, looking down at her with a mix of amusement and disgust. "Excuse me?" He laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "Who are you? The help? Stick to emptying bedpans and stay out of family business." His words were a slap in the face, a heartless reminder of the class divide he perceived. "This is a retirement home, not a boardroom," Naomi countered, stepping closer. "Here, dignity matters. And if you harass my patient again, I will call security and have you banned." Inside the room, Barney Gordon listened, stunned. He had expected her to cower, to apologize to the rich man in the suit. Instead, she was defending him? Him, the man who had thrown water at her yesterday? It was a confusing twist in his cynical worldview. He watched through the open door as his son leaned in, trying to intimidate her. "You're a nobody," the son hissed. "I could have you fired with one phone call." Naomi didn't blink. "Make the call. But until then, get off my floor." The son scoffed, realized he was causing a scene, and stormed off toward the exit, muttering threats. Naomi stood her ground until he was gone, then let out a breath she'd been holding. She turned and walked back into room 304. Barney was staring at her, his mouth slightly open, the silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of what had just happened. For the first time, the billionaire didn't have a snappy comeback. He looked at this woman, this nurse he had mistreated, and saw a strength he recognized. "Why?" Barney asked, his voice rough. "Why did you do that?" Naomi checked his chart, avoiding his gaze, her cheeks flushed. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said. "Simply, nobody deserves to be bullied. Not even you." The "not even you" stung a little, but it was fair. It was a life lesson in integrity that Barney hadn't expected to find in a place with peeling wallpaper. She wasn't doing it for a tip or a favor. She was doing it because she had a moral compass he had long forgotten. Barney looked down at his hands. "He called you a nobody," he muttered. Naomi shrugged, adjusting his pillow. "I've been called worse. Sticks and stones, Mr. Gordon." She moved to leave, but Barney cleared his throat. "Thank you," he grunted, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. It wasn't a poetic speech, but coming from him, it was a seismic shift. Naomi paused, offering him a small, genuine smile. "You're welcome. Now, eat your dinner. It's meatloaf night." As she left, Barney sat in the fading light, his mind racing. He had spent his life surrounded by people who wanted his money, his power, his influence. And here was a woman who had nothing, defending him against his own flesh and blood for free. It didn't make sense to his transactional mind. It was a crack in the dam, a fissure in the wall he had built around his heart. The family drama had exposed a monster, but it also revealed a guardian angel in scrubs. Despite the intervention, Barney Gordon wasn't a man who trusted easily. Decades of corporate warfare had taught him that everyone had a price, everyone had an angle. Now Miss Defense of him was puzzling, and in his cynical mind, suspect. Was she playing a long game? Did she know who he really was? He needed to know. He needed to test the fabric of her character before he let his guard down. He looked at the Rolex on his wrist, a vintage piece, worth more than this entire retirement home. It was a perfect bait for a trap, a way to prove that even the saintly nurse was just another greedy human. The plan was simple and cruel. As Naomi entered to clean his room, Barney made a show of being frustrated with the clasp. "Stupid thing," he muttered, taking it off and placing precariously on the edge of his meal tray, buried under a pile of used napkins and empty sugar packets. "Just clear this trash away," he ordered, waving his hand dismissively. "I don't want to see any of it." He watched her from the corner of his eye, feigning sleep, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. He wanted to be right that the world was heartless, but a small part of him hoped to be wrong. Naomi moved efficiently, gathering the trash. She tipped the contents of the tray into the bin, the heavy thud of the gold watch hitting the metal bottom, hidden by the rustled paper. Barney held his breath. Had she seen it? Would she fish it out later? He watched her tie the bag, her face calm. She didn't look around furtively. She didn't check the door. She simply took the bag and walked out. Barney felt a surge of dark vindication. She missed it, he thought. Now she'll find it at the dumpster, pocket it, and he'll have her fired. It was a twisted logic, born of pain. Hours passed. Barney lay in bed, staring at the clock, waiting for the inevitable. He imagined her pawning it, buying a new car, laughing at the old fool. It confirmed his life lesson: trust no one. But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the floor, the door opened. It was Naomi. She wasn't holding a resignation letter or wearing a guilty expression. She was holding a small cloth bundle. Barney's stomach dropped. He sat up, his massive arrogance slipping. She walked to his bedside table and gently unrolled the cloth. There, gleaming under the fluorescent light, was a Rolex. It had been polished, the smudge of gravy gone, ticking away perfectly. "You accidentally threw this out with your lunch, Mr. Gordon," Naomi said softly, placing it on the nightstand. "I heard it hit the bottom of the bin. Lucky catch." She didn't lecture him. She didn't ask for a reward. She just returned a fortune as if it were a dropped handkerchief. Barney stared at the watch, then at her. His throat felt tight. You found it," he stammered, his script falling apart. "You could have kept it. No one would have known." Naomi looked at him. Her eyes filled with sad understanding. "I would have known," she said, "and stealing isn't in my job description." It was a moment of pure, unadulterated integrity. She had passed a test she didn't even know she was taking, and in doing so, she shattered Barney's worldview. He reached out and touched the cold metal of the watch. It felt heavier now, weighted with regret for his suspicion. "Why?" he asked again, the question that kept haunting him. "Because it's yours," Naomi replied, turning to leave. "And because you look like a man who has lost enough already." She closed the door, leaving Barney alone with his gold and his guilt. The shocking truth was undeniable. There were good people in the world, and he had just tried to trap one of them. He felt small, ashamed, and for the first time in years, the billionaire felt truly humble. The return of the watch was the turning point. Barney Gordon sat on the edge of his bed, the polished Rolex ticking in the silence, a constant reminder of Naomi Williams and her inexplicable honesty. The cynicism that had been his armor for decades began to crack, revealing the lonely old man beneath. He realized that his wealth, the inheritance his son was so desperate for, meant nothing in this room. What mattered was the character of the person standing next to you. Naomi had proven hers, now Barney had to reckon with his own. He was still emotionally walled off, a fortress of solitude, but the drawbridge was slowly lowering. The next morning, when Naomi entered, Barney didn't bark orders. He didn't demand luxury. He simply nodded. "Good morning," he mumbled, avoiding her eyes. It was a microscopic gesture, but for a CEO who treated staff like furniture, it was a massive stride. Naomi noticed. A small smile played on her lips as she checked his chart. "Good morning, Mr. Gordon. Sleeping better?" The dynamic had shifted. It was no longer master and servant, it was human and human. The family drama outside still raged, but inside room 304, a truce had been called. Barney began to observe her more closely. He saw how she treated the other residents with the same unconditional love she showed him. He saw her rub the back of a woman with dementia, sing to a man who couldn't speak, and clean up messes with dignity. She was a caregiver in the truest sense. He felt a pang of regret for his past behavior, for the monster he had been. He wanted to apologize, but the words were stuck in his throat, blocked by years of pride. So he showed it in other ways. He stopped complaining about the food. He started saying please. One afternoon, he caught her looking exhausted, leaning against the doorframe for a moment of respite. "Rough day?" Barney asked, surprising himself. Naomi looked up, startled. "Just long," she admitted. "Short-staffed again." Barney huffed. "Inefficiency," he muttered, reverting to his business persona. "If I were running this place." He trailed off, realizing he wasn't running anything. But Naomi laughed, a genuine bell-like sound. "If you were running this place, we'd probably have better coffee." It was a joke, a shared moment of levity. The ice was melting. However, Barney remained guarded about his past. He didn't tell her about the empire he built, the billions he controlled. He wanted to be sure that this life-changing connection was real, based on him, not his net worth. He wanted to be Barney, not the checkbook. It was a test of a different kind of test of authentic connection. He was learning that vindication wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving to yourself that you could be loved for who you are. The days turned into weeks. The retirement home became less of a prison and more of a sanctuary. Barney found himself waiting for her shift to start, listening for her footsteps. She was the only bright spot in his gray world. The shocking truth was that he was happier here, with nothing, than he had been in his penthouse with everything. Because here he had something real. He had a friend, even if he was too stubborn to admit it out loud. Naomi, for her part, saw the change. The monster of the East Wing was softening. She saw the intelligence behind his eyes, the sadness in his posture. She didn't know his story, the greedy son or the hidden fortune, but she knew he was hurting. And healing the hurting was what she did best. As she tucked him in one night, Barney looked at her. "You're a good kid, Naomi," he said gruffly. It was the highest praise he could offer. And in the quiet of the room, it was enough. The calendar on the wall marked the date with a cruel neutrality: Barney Gordon's 80th birthday. In his previous life, this day would have been a gala event. There would have been champagne, politicians, and a feature in the business section. His greedy son would have toasted him with false praise, eyeing the cameras. But here, in the dim light of the retirement home, the day began with silence. Barney sat by the window, watching the rain streak the glass, waiting. He told himself he didn't care, but every time a phone rang in the hallway, his heart jumped. He was waiting for a call that wouldn't come. Morning turned to afternoon. The post came and went no cards. The visiting hours started no visitors. The realization settled on him like a lead blanket. He had been truly, utterly abandoned. The family drama wasn't just a fight over money, it was an erasure of his existence. His son wasn't coming. The man he raised, the boy he taught to ride a bike, couldn't spare 5 minutes for his father's milestone. It was a tear-jerker moment. The mighty CEO reduced to a forgotten old man staring at a parking lot. Naomi came in for her rounds and instantly read the room. She saw the slump of his shoulders, the unchecked date on the calendar. She knew. She didn't say anything immediately, didn't offer empty platitudes. She finished her tasks with her usual efficiency, but her mind was racing. She couldn't fix his family, but she could fix his night. She checked her wallet barely enough for gas and lunch, but she made a decision. Some things were more important than budgeting. That evening, after the dinner trays were cleared, the lights in room 304 dimmed. Barney was lying in bed, facing the wall, wallowing in the heartless reality of his life. Suddenly, a soft glow filled the room. He turned to see Naomi standing there, holding a single cupcake with a solitary, flickering candle. It wasn't a gourmet cake, it was from the corner store, bought with her meager tips. But in that dark room, it shone like a lighthouse. "Happy birthday to you," she sang, her voice quiet and sweet, wavering slightly with emotion. "Happy birthday to you." Barney stared, his eyes widening. He tried to maintain his composure, his billionaire stoicism, but his chin began to tremble. She walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. "Make a wish, Barney," she whispered. The use of his first name, stripped of titles, hit him hard. He looked at the candle, then at her kind face illuminated by the flame. He blew out the candle, and in the darkness, a single tear escaped, tracing a path to the wrinkles of his cheek. "Thank you," he rasped, his voice breaking. "You didn't have to." Naomi placed a hand on his arm. "No one should be alone on their birthday," she said. "You're family here, Barney." That word family hung in the air. It was a life lesson delivered in sugar and wax. His blood relative was absent, but the stranger, this caregiver, was present. They shared the cupcake, eating in companionable silence. For Barney, that cheap vanilla frosting tasted better than any Michelin star dessert had ever had. It tasted of unconditional love and kindness. It was a moment of pure connection that healed a fracture in his soul. He realized then that wealth wasn't what you had in the bank. It was who sat beside you when the lights went out. The greedy son had given him nothing. Naomi had given him everything she had. And Barney would never forget it. The fragile piece of room 304 was shattered a week later. Barney Gordon woke up gasping for air, a crushing weight on his chest that felt like an elephant sitting on his ribs. The panic was instant and primal. He reached for the call button, his hand knocking over the water glass, the same glass Naomi Williams had filled for him 100 times. The crash was the only sound before darkness encroached on his vision. His heart, the engine that had driven a billionaire's ambition, was faltering. The retirement home alarms blared, a harsh, rhythmic scream that signaled a code blue. Naomi was down the hall when the alarm triggered. She didn't walk, she ran. Bursting into the room, she found Barney pale and unresponsive, the mighty seal looking terrifyingly small in the tangle of sheets. "Barney, stay with me," she shouted, starting compressions. Her training took over, but her heart was hammering with fear. This wasn't just a patient, this was her friend. The paramedics arrived in a whirlwind of noise and equipment, pushing her aside to work their chaotic magic. He was stabilized but critical. The doctors at the hospital were grim. "Heart failure," they said, looking at his chart with the detached efficiency of mechanics looking at a broken car. Back at the facility, the news triggered a different kind of crisis. The facility manager, a man more concerned with liability than life, called Naomi into his office. He's going to need long-term intensive care, he said, tapping a calculator. His payments are already spotty. The son isn't returning calls. We can't keep him. You can't just throw him out. Naomi argued, her voice rising. He's a human being. The manager sighed, adjusting his glasses. He's a liability. If the son doesn't pay, we transfer him to the state ward. It's standard procedure. The heartless bureaucracy was in full swing. The state ward was a warehouse for the dying, a place of neglect and overcrowding. Sending Barney, there was a death sentence. It was a shocking truth about the healthcare system: no money, no mercy. Naomi left the office shaking with rage. She knew Barney had resources she had claimed to be rich, but without access to them, without his greedy son signing the checks, he was destitute on paper. She thought of him waking up alone in a crowded ward, confused and abandoned. She couldn't let that happen. She wouldn't let that happen. The life lesson here was brutal. When you fall, the world kicks you, unless someone catches you. She went back to his empty room, the silence deafening. The unmade bed, the book on the nightstand, the empty cupcake wrapper in the bin, traces of life she was fighting to save. She picked up the phone and dialed the son's number again. Voicemail. This is Naomi. She left a message, her voice steel. Your father is dying. If you have a shred of humanity, call me. She slammed the phone down. Barney lay in a hospital bed miles away, hooked up to machines that beeped in time with his struggling heart. He was dreaming of boardrooms and stock tickers, but also of a warm light and a song about a birthday. He was fighting, holding on by a thread. He didn't know that back at the home, a nurse was preparing to go to war with the administration for his sake. The family drama had become a battle for survival, and Naomi was the only soldier on his side. The threat of the state ward hung over Barney Gordon's head like a guillotine. The facility administration had the paperwork ready. They just needed a signature to ship him off. Naomi Williams became a one-woman blockade. She stormed into manager's office every day, citing regulations, threatening bad press, pleading to his humanity. Give me a week, she begged. He'll handle his care. He'll do the double shifts. Just don't move him. It was a desperate gamble. But her ferocity gave the manager pause. He gave her a temporary reprieve, but the clock was ticking. When Barney was transferred back to the retirement home, still weak, bedridden, and requiring constant monitoring, Naomi was there. She wasn't just his nurse anymore, she was his guardian. She clocked out of her official shift and clocked back in as a volunteer, staying by his side through the long, terrifying nights. She adjusted his IVs, wiped his brow, and read to him when he was too weak to open his eyes. She was exhausted, dark circles forming under her eyes, her own bills piling up at home. But she didn't leave. Her colleagues whispered, "Why are you doing this, Naomi? He's just a grumpy old man." They didn't understand. They didn't see the life lesson unfolding. They didn't know about the cupcake, the watch, the shared humanity. To Naomi, Barney was a testament to the fact that everyone deserves dignity, regardless of their bank balance or their heartless relatives. This was unconditional love in action, not romantic, but a deep, abiding agape love that sacrifices a self for the other. Barney, drifting in and out of consciousness, was aware of her presence. He felt the cool cloth on his forehead, heard her humming that same tune to keep the shadows at bay. He saw her sleeping in the uncomfortable chair next to his bed, wrapped in a thin cardigan. Guilt and gratitude warred in his chest. He was a billionaire, a CEO, and yet he couldn't pay her a dime. He was accepting charity from the person who could least afford it. It humbled him to his core. One night, he woke up to find her checking his pulse, her eyes heavy with fatigue. "Go home, Naomi," he whispered, his voice weak. "You'll kill yourself." Naomi smiled, a tired but radiant expression. "I'm fine, Barney. You're stuck with me." She poured him water. "Besides, who else is going to make sure you eat your vegetables?" Her humor was a shield, protecting them both from the gravity of the situation. She was fighting a system that wanted to discard him, and she was winning hour by hour. The greedy son was still silent. No visits, no calls, no checks. The abandonment was total, but in that small room, the void left by the son was filled by the nurse. Naomi spent her own money buying him soft blankets because the hospital ones were scratchy. She brought him soup from home because the cafeteria food was inedible. She was pouring her life into his, expecting nothing in return. Barney watched her, his mind clearing as his strength slowly returned. He was recording every act of kindness, every sacrifice. The shocking truth was that this woman, whom his son had called a nobody, was the noblest person he had ever met. She was saving his life, not just medically, but spiritually. And as he lay there, watching her doze off in the chair, he made a silent vow. If he survived this, if he ever got back on his feet, he would ensure that Naomi Williams never had to worry about a bill again. Justice was coming, and it would be beautiful. The door to room 304 banged open, shattering the quiet sanctuary Naomi Williams had built. It wasn't a medical emergency, it was an invasion. The greedy son strode in, flanked by two men in sharp suits lawyers who looked like undertakers with briefcases. They didn't look at Barney as a person. They looked at him as an asset to be liquidated. Barney Gordon lay still, his eyes closed, instinctively feigning sleep, a survival tactic from his corporate days. He sensed the danger in the room, the distinct smell of predatory intent. "Is he out?" The son asked loudly, not bothering to lower his voice. He waved a hand in front of Barney's face, treating his father like a broken appliance. "Good. Let's get this over with." He turned to the lawyers. "The doctors say he's weak. If we declare him incompetent now, the power of attorney kicks in immediately. I can liquidate the assets before the fiscal quarter ends." The words hung in the air, cold and heartless. There was no concern for recovery, only for the inheritance. Naomi, who had been tidying the bathroom, stepped out, her face flushing with anger. "Quiet," she hissed. "He needs rest, not a board meeting." The son spun around, sneering. "You again? I thought I told you to get lost." He turned back to the lawyers, ignoring her. "This place is costing a fortune. Once the papers are signed, we move him to the state facility. It's free, and frankly, it's all he needs at this stage." Barney's heart hammered in his chest, but he kept his breathing even. He was listening to his own execution being planned. Move him to the state ward? To save money? He was worth billions. The greedy son wasn't just trying to take the money. He was trying to discard the body. It was a family drama escalating into a crime. The lawyers murmured their assent, discussing loopholes and timelines, their voices a drone of avarice. "He is not going anywhere," Naomi stated firmly, placing herself between the bed and the suits. "He is my patient, and he is too unstable to be moved." The son laughed, a cruel, barking sound. "He's not your patient, he's my burden, and I'm tired of carrying it." He looked at Barney's sleeping form with pure contempt. "He's just a vegetable now, a waste of space. The sooner he's gone, the sooner I can actually enjoy my money." My money, the phrase echoed in Barney's mind. The money he had worked 16-hour days for. The empire he had built from scratch. His son saw it as his birthright, and his father as the obstacle. The shocking truth was laid bare. There was no love, not even a shred of respect. Just greed. Pure, unadulterated greed. Naomi looked ready to physically fight them. "Get out," she commanded, her voice trembling with rage. "I'm calling security." The son rolled his eyes. "Fine. We're done here anyway. We'll be back with a court order tomorrow." He leaned over Barney one last time. "Sleep tight, Dad. Tomorrow, you're Uncle Sam's problem." The trio left, leaving a trail of expensive cologne and moral decay. Barney waited until the footsteps faded, his mind racing, a cold fire igniting in his belly. The vindication he had planned was no longer enough. This was war. The door clicked shut, and the room plunged back into silence, but the energy had shifted violently. Barney Gordon opened his eyes. They weren't the eyes of a sick, defeated old man. They were the eyes of the CEO who had crushed competitors and dominated markets. He had heard every word. Burden, vegetable, waste of space. The words seared his soul, burning away the last remnants of paternal affection. His son had declared him dead while he was still breathing. The betrayal was absolute, but so was the clarity. Naomi Williams was standing by the window, wiping away angry tears. She thought Barney had slept through the insults. She turned to check on him, composing her face. "They're gone, Barney. You're safe," she whispered, smoothing his blanket. She was trying to protect him from the shocking truth. Unaware that he had absorbed it all, Barney looked at her, this woman who had fought for him against 3 men in suits who had been called a nobody by his son. "I heard them," Barney said, his voice surprisingly steady. Naomi froze. "Barney." She didn't know what to say. How do you comfort a father who just heard his son wish him dead? He didn't mean it, she lied, trying to spare him pain. He's just stressed. Barney shook his head slowly. He meant every word, Naomi. And he's right about one thing. I have been a burden. No, Naomi interrupted fiercely. You are not a burden. You are a human being with a life and a story. Barney smiled, a sad, weary smile. I'm not talking about you, kid. You are the only family I have left. The admission hung in the air, heavy and profound. The life lesson was complete. Blood didn't make family, love did. Loyalty did. The greedy son was a stranger, the nurse was his daughter in spirit. An internal transformation took hold of Barney. The despair that had plagued him since his arrival at the retirement home evaporated, replaced by a steely resolve. He wasn't going to die here. He wasn't going to the state ward. And he certainly wasn't letting his son win. He had one final deal to close, one last masterstroke play. The billionaire was back online. Naomi, he said, his voice gaining strength. I need a favor. A big one. Naomi stepped closer, concerned. Anything, Barney. You know that. He looked her in the eye, his gaze intense. I need you to help me get better. Fast. And I need you to keep a secret. My son thinks I'm a vegetable. Let him keep thinking that. Naomi looked confused, but nodded. Okay. But why? Barney's eyes glinted with a mix of mischief and justice. Because I'm going to teach him a lesson he'll never forget. And I'm going to need my partner in crime. It was the beginning of the counterattack. The tear-jerker narrative was over. The revenge thriller had begun. Barney Gordon was about to show the world that you should never write off a tycoon, especially one with nothing left to lose. The following weeks in Room 304 were a masterclass in deception. Barney Gordon, fueled by a mix of spite and revitalized purpose, began his recovery in secret. By day, when the staff of the rare administrator peeked in, he played the part of the frazzled, semi-conscious invalid. He stared blankly at the wall, drooled slightly, and mumbled incoherently. But the moment the door was locked and Naomi Williams was on shift, the CEO emerged. He did push-ups against the wall, practiced walking without his cane, and sharpened his mind with crossword puzzles Naomi smuggled in. It was their shared secret, a conspiracy of 2 against the world. Naomi became his trainer, his confidant, and his co-conspirator. She brought him extra protein, helped him stretch his atrophied muscles, and guarded the door while he made discreet phone calls on a burner phone she had bought him. You're moving well today, Barney, shed whisper, watching him pace the small room. Just don't let the supervisor see that strut. Barney would wink. Let them think I'm rusting. Rust is just camouflage for the iron underneath. Their bond deepened. In the quiet hours of the night shift, Barney told her stories not of his wealth, but of his life. He talked about his late wife, about the mistakes he made raising his greedy son, about the loneliness at the top. Naomi listened, offering her own stories of struggle and hope. They were an odd pair, the undercover billionaire and the overworked nurse, united by a quest for vindication. Barney realized that for the first time in decades, he was having a real conversation with someone who wanted nothing from him but his company. Why didn't you tell him? Naomi asked one night, referring to his son. Why not just reveal you're lucid and fire the lawyers? Barney stopped pacing. Because he needs to show his true colors to the world, not just to me. If I stop him now, he'll just say he was concerned. I need him to commit. I need the shocking truth to be undeniable. It was a ruthless strategy, a corporate takeover tactic applied to family drama. He was letting his son dig his own grave, shovelful by shovelful. Meanwhile, the son was moving forward with his plans, arrogant and unchecked. He stopped visiting entirely, sending only legal notices to the facility. He assumed the old man was fading away, a problem solving itself. He had no idea that the vegetable in room 304 was currently orchestrating a legal maneuver that would make Wall Street spin. Barney was in contact with his old legal team, the loyal ones preparing the trap. Naomi worried about the toll it was taking on him. "Don't push too hard, Barney. Your heart." He waved her off. "My heart is fine, kid. It's finally being used for something other than pumping blood." He looked at her with unconditional love. "You gave me a reason to fight, Naomi. Before you, I was just waiting to die. Now I have a mission." The atmosphere in the room was electric with anticipation. The retirement home was about to become the stage for the ultimate showdown. Barney was recovering not just his health, but his agency. He was no longer the victim. He was the architect of his own destiny. And Naomi, the unsuspecting heir to a legacy she couldn't imagine, was standing right beside him, ready to face the storm. The night before the final legal meeting, the one where the son expected to take full control, Barney Gordon decided it was time. He couldn't let Naomi Williams walk into the lion's den blind. She needed to know who she was really protecting. The rain lashed against the window of the retirement home, creating a cocoon of noise that isolated room 304 from the rest of the world. Barney sat in his chair, fully dressed in a suit Naomi had retrieved from his storage, looking every inch the CEO he was. When Naomi entered, she stopped dead in her tracks. "Barney, you look..." She trailed off, taking in the sharp lines of the suit, the gold cufflinks, the aura of power that radiated from him. He didn't look like a patient, he looked like a king. "Sit down, Naomi," he said gently, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "We need to talk. No more secrets." Barney took a deep breath. "You know me as Barney, the cranky old guy in 304. But that's not the whole story." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a magazine clipping. It was an old Forbes cover, featuring a younger, sharper Barney under the headline, "The Gordon Empire, the Man Who Owns Tomorrow." Naomi stared at the photo, then at him. The resemblance was undeniable. You're him?" she whispered. "The billionaire?" "I am," Barney confessed, his voice tinged with regret. "I built cities. I bought companies. I had everything. And I lost myself along the way. I raised a son who values the inheritance more than his father. I became arrogant, heartless, until I came here." He leaned forward, taking her hands in his. "Until I met you. You treated me like a human being when I had nothing to offer you but insults. You saved my life when my own blood left me for dead." Naomi was stunned. The shocking truth was overwhelming. "Barney, I didn't do it for her. I didn't know." He squeezed her hands. "I know you didn't. That's the point. You're the only person in my life who loved me for nothing. That is the rarest thing in the world, Naomi. It's the only true wealth." Tears welled in his eyes. "I want to apologize for the man I was when I arrived, for the test with the watch, for hiding this from you." Naomi shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't have to apologize, Barney. You were hurt. I'm just glad you're you." It was a moment of profound emotional intimacy. The family drama had stripped away the artifice, leaving two souls connected by pure trust. Barney felt a weight lift off his chest, a burden he had carried for years. He was finally seen, finally understood. "Tomorrow," Barney said, his voice hardening with resolve, "my son comes to the kill. He thinks he's evicting a helpless old man. He has no idea he's walking into a buzzsaw." He looked at Naomi with a fierce pride. "Stand tall tomorrow, Naomi, because when the dust settles, everything is going to change. For both of us." It was a promise of justice, a vow that the life-changing events were just beginning. The caregiver and the tycoon were ready for the final act. The morning sun cut through the blinds of the retirement home, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air of room 304. The stage was set. Barney Gordon was back in bed, dressed in his pajamas, playing the part of the invalid one last time. Naomi Williams stood by the door, her heart pounding, her hands clasped tightly together. She knew the truth now, and the anticipation was agonizing. The greedy son was late, of course, arriving with the pomp and circumstance of a conquering emperor. He swept into the room, followed not just by his two lawyers, but by a notary and the facility manager. He wanted witnesses. He wanted this to be official. "Wake him up," the son commanded the manager, ignoring Naomi entirely. "Let's get the signature and get him loaded into the transport." He held a document that would transfer all assets to him and authorize Barney's move to the state ward. It was a final stroke of a heartless masterpiece. "Mr. Gordon?" the manager said tentatively, shaking Barney's shoulder. "Your son is here." Barney groaned, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at his son, feigning confusion. "Son? What? What are you doing?" The son smiled, a shark-like grin. "Just taking care of business, Dad. Sign here, and you can go back to sleep. Forever." He thrust the pen at Barney, the inheritance gleaming in his eyes. Suddenly, the door to the room opened again, but it wasn't a nurse. It was a phalanx of 6 people in immaculate dark suits, carrying briefcases that screamed expensive. The son turned, annoyed. "Who the hell are you? Get out, this is private." The lead stranger, a woman with eyes like steel, stepped forward. "We are Mr. Gordon's legal counsel from the firm of Sterling Holt, and we are here at his request." The son laughed, a nervous, incredulous sound. "My father is incompetent. He didn't call anyone." At that moment, Barney sat up. He didn't groan. He didn't shake. He sat up straight, swung his legs over the side of the bed, and stood up. The transformation was instant and terrifying. The vegetable was gone. The CO was in the room. "Actually," Barney said, his voice booming with authority, "I called them yesterday, while you were busy counting my money." The color drained from the son's face. He stepped back, bumping into the wall. "Dad? But you were..." Barney took a step forward, his eyes blazing with vindication. "I was watching. I was listening. I heard you call me a burden. I heard you call Naomi a nobody. I saw you try to throw me away like garbage." The room was dead silent. The facility manager looked like he wanted to vanish. Naomi watched, a silent cheer rising in her throat. This is a trick," the son stammered. "He's senile. He doesn't know what he's doing." Barney signaled his lawyer, who handed him a fresh document. "I know exactly what I'm doing," Barney said calmly. "I'm redefining the term family drama." He looked at his son with a mixture of pity and finality. "You wanted the empire? You wanted the power? You forgot the first rule of business. Son, never underestimate the opposition." The shocking truth hit the son like a freight train. The game was up. The power dynamic had flipped in a heartbeat. Barney wasn't a victim. He was a judge, jury, and executioner. And the sentence was about to be read. The air crackled with the energy of justice being served, cold and precise. The climax of the confrontation centered on a single piece of paper in Barney Gordon's hand, his last will and testament, freshly drafted and legally ironclad. The greedy son, sweating profusely now, tried to bluster his way out. "Dad, come on. It was just stress talking. I love you. I was doing this for the family." His pleas rang hollow, a pathetic attempt to salvage the inheritance he saw slipping away. Barney looked at him with cold detachment. "You're right. It is about family. And I finally found mine." Barney handed the document to his lead attorney, who began to read aloud. "I, Barney Gordon, being of sound mind and body, hereby revoke all previous wills." The son held his breath. "To my son." The lawyer paused, adjusting his glasses. "I leave the sum of $0. Furthermore, I leave him the invoice for my stay at the facility, which he so graciously selected for me." The shocking truth landed with a thud. The son let out a strangled noise. "You can't do that. I'll sue." "You can try," Barney said famously, "but my lawyers are better than yours. And unlike you, I have the money to pay them." He turned his back on his son, dismissing him from his life forever. The son was escorted out by security. Screaming threats that faded into the hallway, a man consumed by his own greed, receiving the karma he had earned. Then Barney turned to Naomi Williams, who was standing quietly in the corner, overwhelmed by the spectacle. The room softened. The CEO mask melted away, leaving just Barney. And to Naomi Williams, the lawyer continued, his voice warming. for her unwavering, unconditional love, for her integrity when no one was watching, and for being the only person to treat me with dignity. I leave the entirety of the Gordon estate, including all assets, properties, and controlling interest in Gordon Industries. Naomi gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Barney, no, I can't. She was shaking. This was life-changing. This was impossible. Barney walked over to her, taking her hands. You can, and you will, not because you want the money, but because you have the heart to use it right. You won't build walls with it, you'll build bridges. You'll change lives, just like you changed mine. The tearjerker moment was real. The nobody nurse was now a billionaire. The retirement home staff watched in awe. It was the ultimate vindication of kindness. Barney smiled, a true, genuine smile. I'm not dying anytime soon, kid. We have a lot of work to do. We have a foundation to start. Maybe we can even fix up this dump. He winked. The story ended not with a funeral, but with a new beginning. The heartless son was gone, left to navigate the world without the crutch of his father's wealth. Barney found a purpose and a daughter. And Naomi proved that in a world obsessed with gold, kindness is the ultimate currency. The last will wasn't about death, it was about life. It was a testament to the fact that while greed may win a battle, love always wins the war. As they walked out of the room together, leaving the shadows of the past behind, the future shone bright, bought and paid for by a simple act of returning a watch. Barney and Naomi's journey reminds us of a simple, powerful truth: you can inherit a fortune, but you have to earn a family. True wealth isn't what's in your bank account. It's the character you show when you think no one is watching. If you also believe that kindness is a superpower and that good people deserve to finish first, then you've found your home. Subscribe right now and join our community, our building a place where integrity is always a headline. Now, I need you to take action in 3 simple steps. First, hit that like button to help spread this message of hope to a world that desperately needs it. Second, let's talk in the comments. Be honest. If you were in Naomi's shoes, struggling to pay bills, would you ever return that Rolex? Let me know your thoughts. And third, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that justice is real. And while you're here, don't let the emotions stop. Our channel is a treasure chest of stories just like this one. Dive into our older videos to discover more journeys that will touch your heart. And to make sure you aren't left behind for the next incredible story we're cooking up, turn on that notification bell. You won't want to miss the next chapter. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind. It pays off.